Ready? All right. I'm Rapaport Stereo Podcast is here. Have no fear. I am very, 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 very excited to be with my guest today, Chris Hansen. Did you see that snap technique?
I liked it, Michael. I liked it a lot. It gave me energy.
Now, I'm just telling you right now, you have your own network, you have shows. That snap technique,
That's gold.
It's patent.
It's gold.
So if you steal it, you use it. I'm just telling you right now, lawyers will be knocking down your door,
You're
okay?
going to be hunting me as the predator.
Boom. Chris Hansen, newsman, 10-time Emmy winner. And in a weird way, I was thinking about this, and in a weird way, pop culture phenomenon from your show To Catch a Predator. I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Now, normally I don't fact check on the I Am Rapaport Stereo Podcast. We pride ourselves on that. But
This story's too good to check out.
Yeah, it's too good to check out. I wanted to get all your stuff out. You have now created a streaming network, an entire network, True Blue Streaming. You have True Crime Nation. You have, which is an update of To Catch a Predator. You have Predators I've Caught with Chris Hansen, which is your podcast, because podcasts are like assholes.
Everybody's got to have one.
Everybody's going to have one, and some people have more than one. And you have a one-man show that you're working on in Las Vegas. You have stuff going on up the wazoo.
It's good. It's a good time to be me, you know, and I've got a great team working on all this stuff. And clearly, as you know, crime stories are more popular than ever. And we try to do them in an impactful way, whether it's the new Predator investigations or the many other crime stories, documentaries we're working on, where we take people inside the crime, where they hear things they wouldn't normally hear and see things they wouldn't normally see.
Now, when you got started as a news person?
I started as a reporter in
on air.
radio in college.
Okay.
And then was lucky enough my last year in college at Michigan State to get a job at the NBC station in Lansing. So I was a straight news reporter for many, many years until, well, and I still think the Predator franchise has been news, but clearly, as you mentioned, it's different because it's achieved this iconic stature in pulp culture that I've never experienced before with any other franchise.
Amir, you're going into the singles when he's, right, you're doing it. Okay, even though it's not up here. Okay. You went to college, just real quick, at the same time, a gentleman who did okay in the NBA.
He was pretty good.
Irvin something, Matt.
He had a nickname.
Irving.
Magic. Magic Johnson. Yeah.
You were at
We were
Michigan.
in the same class.
Were you ever physically in a class with him?
I was never in a class with him, but I'd see him around campus. He left after sophomore year to become a millionaire at the Lakers. I stayed and worked $4.70 an hour at WJM Radio, but it all worked out. And I've seen him many times over the years. He's a gracious, lovely human being and
truly charismatic.
Truly charismatic. His whole family is, and he runs his business that way. But he's a lovely guy to be around, and I've had the pleasure of sitting next to him at NC2A tournaments and seeing him at different functions. I stayed pretty active at Michigan State. So, yeah, he's a wonderful, wonderful guy.
Real quick with Magic, what was it like? I mean, there wasn't Twitter, there wasn't everybody taking pictures, but what was it like being in college with somebody who was truly a college star?
Well,
he was a star.
We knew him in high school. I went to Brother Rice High School, and I didn't play basketball. I played football, but my buddies who played basketball played against him in the state championship game, our senior year, I believe it was. And it was tied. And this was before the three-point, shot. And so Kevin Smith, who is a classmate of mine, launches this half-court shot to tie it up and put it into overtime. And Brother Rice, my high school, lost in overtime to Lansing Everett and Irvin Magic Johnson. So
that's a cool story.
It was cool because it was at Jennison Fieldhouse.
Did he stand out as a player? Like, was he obviously he had gotten the nickname in high school.
He did in college. I mean, he was just one of those lovely characters with $1 million smile who just went out there every night and played the game and was a superb team leader. I never heard anybody say anything bad about Magic Johnson in college. And you hear bad things about athletes whose head gets too big or don't remember their roots, but not once. The funniest story I ever remember about Magic in college was he had this beat to Hell, Buick Electra 225 in Detroit growing up, we called it a deuce and a quarter. And the guys around town in the gas stations would, do him a solid and tape it up or fix it up or get it. Everybody knew he was going to be just fine, but you got to get him to Genesis from wherever he was living. And gas station attendant, a mechanic, asks him one day when he was talking about going pro, they said, what are you going to do? You going to stay or go? He goes, man, I don't know whether to go for the money or stay for the honey.
Magic said that. That's funny. All right. Because I talking about Magic Johnson and then the segue here, boom, into the Predators.
Sure.
When you're, bring me up to speed, remind everybody how the show To Catch a Predator started and what you were thinking when you first started doing the show. It was originally a segment.
It was a segment on Dateline.
Right.
And I had become aware of an online watchdog group called Perverted Justice. And at the time, its contributors would go online, exist in chat rooms, and if an adult, they would pose as kids.
Right.
And if an adult hit on them and made a date, they would post as much as they had on this guy on their website, pervertedjustice.com. So I started to think, what if we could combine their efforts as decoys and we rented a house and we used our ability to wire it with hidden cameras and microphones? What would happen? It could be pretty compelling. So I pitched the story and they bought it. Dateline bought it. And we set up a home in Bethpage, Long Island. We rented it from a retired NYPD guy. And we didn't have a collaboration with law enforcement at the time. We just did it. I had a security guy, Ron Knight, who was a retired NYPD lieutenant who worked at NBC in security. He was there. And we just did it. So I'm driving to the Sting House, and I'm wondering, I'm daydreaming, getting, through traffic on the Throgsnake Bridge. What if nobody shows up? What if we've just wasted tens of thousands of dollars of the network's money? And with that, my producer, Lynn Keller, calls and says, where the hell are you? Two guys are supposed to be here in 45 minutes. And within 2.5 days, 17 guys surfaced in that investigation, including a New York City firefighter trying to have sex with a child.
Excuse me. 17 people showed up the first day.
In that first sting in 2.5 days.
And what were you thinking the first time you had to encounter one of these people?
I was just trying to keep my heart in my chest, which was in my throat, because again, we had taken the knives out of the kitchen. We had taken security precautions, but you're really operating without a net here. And so the first guy comes in, and I have the transcripts, and the assistant producers try to keep track of all the chat logs on the dining room table in the next room. And I confront the guy, and it goes pretty well. And the guy just leaves, right? Second guy comes in, same thing. Third guy comes in, and I grab the wrong transcripts. So I'm going to go, knuckle down on this guy. And so it says here, you want to do this, that, and the other thing with a 13-year-old girl named Beth. No, it wasn't me. Excuse me. Go back, get the next transcript. A 14-year-old named Suzanne. No, that wasn't me. And finally, in the third transcript,
you're doing like take one, take two, take three.
Yeah. And I got the right transcript on the third time. So he goes, oh, yeah, that's me. Okay, well, let's continue. But it was very unpredictable. We finished, and I thought, oh, my God. Not only have we exposed something that needs to be exposed, we have the opportunity to create awareness and a dialogue in the most compelling way. And it's great TV, by the way.
Were you, you said you were nervous, but when you've probably gotten more comfortable with it. When you're confronting these people, when you're exposing them, do you feel like something could happen? Do you feel bad for them? Do you feel ashamed for them? Like what's going through your mind?
I feel bad for their families. I feel bad for their significant others. I feel bad for their children. And sometimes I experience some empathy for them. But at the end of the day, if we weren't there,
right,
and a child was there, there would be the commission of a rape. And if we catch the guy, and almost universally they say, well, this is their first time, or we were just there to, save the kid or whatever, I can predict without fear of contradiction. They've done this before. Many have done it before. Now, maybe we've caught a couple first-time guys, but very few. And when you talk to therapists and people who study this in law enforcement, these guys are out there.
So when you would do the show, would they get arrested?
In the first 2 investigations, no.
With the one in Long Island?
In Long Island,
Long Island's already got so many things going against it. The fact that you had to just add insult to injury and remind everybody that To Catch a Predator started in Long Island and 17 people showed up in the right. It is just, shout out to Long Island. But go ahead.
So the firefighter was prosecuted by the FBI. Other than that, these guys were in the wind because we didn't collaborate with law enforcement on the front end. It became very difficult. Now, the second one in suburban Washington, D.C., law enforcement did go after these cases after the fact. There was the rabbi who got busted.
Right.
There was an Army guy who got busted. Several others who were prosecuted and did time in that case. But it became very clear that, we couldn't let these guys just walk out and be in the wind. We had to do something different in order to be socially responsible. And it was very unfulfilling from a pure television production standpoint to see these guys walk off and, twirling an umbrella into the sunset.
Did you ever have anybody that it got, obviously there's security with you that we don't see on camera, but was there any situations that maybe got cut out, or maybe that you need to remind yourself where they want to fight or they want to run away, and maybe you bring in it becomes a collab, it becomes To Catch a Predator with Chris Hansen, and maybe we get Dog the Bounty Hunter going after them.
Well, in one of the recent investigations that's up now on True Blue, we had a guy walk in who got snotty with me right away, and he tried to bolt, and when they bolt, the law enforcement gets him. Now, sometimes I get another shot at the apple if I can figure out a way to get in there, even though they've been taken into custody, which was the case here. And the guy was just really, really arrogant. And you can't do this. You can't put me on television. And I'm, holding a vial of lubricant that he brought with him to, have anal sex with a 15-year-old boy in his face. So I'm not going to back down. And he's acting like he did nothing wrong. They haul him away. And I turned to the crew and I said, I'll bet you money. I will guarantee you that this guy is in a position of authority. He's either a cop, he's a city councilman, he's an executive of the company. And sure enough, the Genesee County Sheriff's Department in Michigan searches his car. They find 3 guns, handcuffs, and his police credentials. He was a police officer, and he had been a school administrator, and he had been a juvenile probation officer. So what do you think was going on there?
Has doing To Catch a Predator and all the stuff you've done in the crime world changed your outlook on humanity?
I'd like to think, Michael, that I keep a pretty good sense of being a regular guy about it. I mean, I don't wake up every morning and think, okay, this guy in the subway is going to be this guy or that guy. I try not to put people into categories or look at the whole world as dirty. I mean, I've done a pretty good job, I think, and my family would be a better judge of this, but I've done a pretty good job, I think, of compartmentalizing it and being that guy when I've got to be that guy, and being the guy who shucks oysters on New Year's Eve when it's time to shuck the oysters and turn it off.
Did you shuck oysters?
I did. I was a master shucker.
Okay. So you're a master shucker.
I don't know about that. I was that night. I didn't cut myself. I had a new kit and everything.
How many oysters did we crack open?
I cracked open probably.
Where was this?
We have a home in Michigan. We have an apartment in the city. And
okay.
We have a home in Michigan.
Okay.
And so
are we on a lake? Are we on a beach?
We're across the street from a lake.
Across the street
from Detroit, but
suburban
more in
Detroit.
the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
So crime pays.
Crime pays. It's fine.
You run in a network. So how many oysters did we shuck on New Year's Eve?
We were close to 2 dozen. I went
2 dozen. Just two. Well, who's eating 2 dozens from one person?
My wife ate some.
I mean, that's 2 dozen. I would have had.
Not everybody in the family was eating. There was only 4 of us there. People are spread out. My kids are older, so I've got a kid in Florida. I got one in Brooklyn. We got one in Chicago. We got one at Michigan State still. So we only had 4 of us there. So one doesn't eat oysters. So I was saying, I set out to buy 3 dozen. The way they had it at the store is at Papa Joe's. Shout out to Papa Joe's.
Shout out to Papa Joe's.
Great store. And I went in there thinking, they must have good oysters here. They got everything else is good. And they actually had bushels of oysters out in front of the seafood counter where you could grab them. They give you a plastic glove and you have a bag and you fill up the oysters. And I handed him however many. He said, if you get 4 more, you get 5 extra free. So maybe 30.
Okay.
There were none left.
Okay.
They're all good.
Good. As
all popped.
there should never be
No.
oysters left.